Hello, this is Coffee with Andrew. This is the first installment of many to come. I'm gonna do this every single Tuesday. I want to make it concise. I want to be life-giving and valuable for you. And so this is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I feel like I've received a lot of wisdom from mentors and people in my life and family and from the Lord ultimately, that if I were to keep them to myself, I feel like it'd be kind of selfish. And so it's a time I want to just give of what the Lord has given me. And so this week, first week of many, I'm going to talk about having a vision retreat. And I'm going to go very briefly about some of the things you can do on a vision retreat. First off, what is a vision retreat? Why is it important? Vision retreat is like getting away to an Airbnb, get away from your normal pace and your normal place so that you can receive some perspective on your life, on your past, on your future, and where you are at now. And so that's getting to an Airbnb, a cabin, anything like that to really do that. When I first did it, I went to my brother-in-law and my sister's place to a house to myself when they were gone. And what I did on that first retreat 3 years ago is that I did some planning with God. So I did really practical. I wrote down 9 areas of my life and came up with some goals for each one of them. 2 or 3 different goals. To you that might seem like, wow, that's a little overdone. But I just feel like I'd rather have more goals for me to reach for than to not have any goals that I can reach for. And so I just wrote down a bunch of them. I made them so that they were, as we grew up with it, smart. So they were easy and easy enough where I could reach each one of them. And so I encourage you to do something like that, to write down 9 key areas of your life and how you can reach goals in them. This is the fun part. I wrote down a bucket list of things that I want to accomplish or see in my life. And one of them is to see the Vikings win the Super Bowl. That definitely did not happen this year, but maybe in the future. That might be the only one that's left unchecked by the time I leave this earth. And then I also did some dreaming with God. That was really sweet. During this time, I wrote down 4 key areas of my life that I wanted to dream about ministry and finances, marriage and family, and hobbies. And I also wrote down a 20-year looking forward, what would I want to be said about my life, summary of my life in 20 years. I also, in this time, sought the Lord on the vision and I'm kind of like more like the purpose for my life in a very concise statement. And that was been really helpful. I memorized that, and it's part of really who I am today. And I did some looking back, and this is actually one of the first things I did, but I looked back on the last season of my life in Fergus Falls 3 years ago. And I was there in Fergus Falls for about 4 years. And so I wanted to write down, what did I get from those 4 years? What did I gain? Because if I don't look back, I usually just forget. And so in those 4 years, I wrote down the key principles that I gained from those years. I wrote down the answered prayers that happened in those 4 years. And then I also put a Bible in the middle. And in that Bible, I wrote down all the key verses that stuck out to me. And the last thing I did is I wrote down the key lifelong relationships that I have because of those 4 years in Fergus Falls, that rich time that I had there right after high school. Didn't think I'd end up in Fergus Falls, but I did. And looking back on those 4 years there, I am so thankful that God called me there. And the following year, this last year, I did another vision retreat by myself. And during this vision retreat, I did a timeline of my life. And in that timeline, I wrote down different seasons. I broke them up in different seasons of my first 23, 24 years of my life. And, different things like that has been really helpful to look back on. What did I gain from that season? What were the challenges? What were the highlights? And that was sweet as well. I wrote down goals again. I wrote down key events and get a synopsis of all those key events in 2017. I did a sweet thing of writing down the key principles of 2017 that I can look back on and say, man, I remember, when did I learn that? When did I grow in that? And I can look back way in the future and say, wow, that's when God placed that in my heart. And I also wrote down my core values, and I also wrote down with my wife the core values of our marriage. The core values of our marriage has been sweet because we memorize it. It's on a little calligraphy thing in our bedroom. Since getting married in May, it's been up there. And the 4 values are intimacy, legacy, health, and fun. And having those 4 help us filter the decisions that we make as a couple. And it's been sweet to have those. And so I know this is very short, and I didn't really go into them, but I wanted to make this time valuable to you, and I didn't want to take up too much time. But I hope this has been helpful. Little tools like this that you can take on a vision retreat that you can have. If you're a college student, to get away before you go back to college, if you were married, to just be spontaneous and get to an Airbnb. They're cheap and they're in the nature usually. So I encourage you to do that. And I'll definitely see you next Tuesday if you choose to join me again. But I feel like this is going to be an incredible year, the best year that we've ever had in 2019. And so bless you, and I hope to see you next time.